To kick off this tutorial, we're going to first need a foundation for our DirectX application. That means that we're going to need a Win32 application. So I recommend making an empty project, going to the link down below, and downloading those files that I've included with the video. With this, there's going to be three files. There's going to be the app.h, the app.cpp, and the main.cpp. So going into the main.cpp, what we're going to first do is give you a little rundown of what we're doing in here. Inside here, we're basically just doing the bare minimum needed to do a Win32 application. Like I said, we do expect that you have the basic knowledge of how to make a Win32 application, but this is just going to give you a quick showing of what we're doing. That way you're not totally and completely lost. So we're going to first create our window structure, register our structure. We're going to create our window, making sure that we grab the handle to the window. And then from here, we're going to make sure that it's actually a handle to the window. Show the window, update the window, and then what we're going to do is we're going to create a local C app object. And then we're going to want to init it by sending in the handle to the window. Then after that, we're going to have infinite for loop, and inside that for loop, we're going to be checking to make sure we don't have any messages for our window, and we're going to be rendering our application. And as all this is going, whenever the window needs to close, what we do after that is we release, clean up any data, unregister the class, and return 0. So going inside the app.h, what we're going to do is we're going to see what we have. So we pound include windows at the top. We have a constructor, a destructor. We have our init function, our release function, and our render function with no private data members. And then inside our app.cpp, you see that all the function bodies are empty for the time being, at least. So with all this being said, it's time to start actually doing some DirectX. So in order to get DirectX to work, we're going to, of course, need to know DirectX actually exists on our machine. Once again, I assume that you have watched the intro slides at least, and it tells you that you need to actually install the SDK for DirectX. Assuming you have that done, it's time to continue. So we're going to go to app.h, all right? And we're going to first need to tell our application, hey, this exists. So, of course, we're going to be pound including DirectX, or pound include d3d9.h, and pound include d3dx9.h. And then, after that, we're going to want to include the libraries. So we're going to do pragma comment lib, and then in quotes, we're going to do d3d9.lib, d3d9.lib, and then we're going to copy that line and paste the line, and we're going to throw an x in between that d and the 9 to make d3dx9.lib. So now from here, you should be able to compile your project. And if it actually gives no errors at all, no failures, well then you're one step ahead because you have actually included DirectX in with your project. If you have errors, then what you're going to want to do is go up to Solution Explorer, or assuming once again that you know how to use your IDE, you're going to want to go to the properties of your project. From here, you're going to want to go to your VC++ directories, to pound include your include directories, or sorry, not pound include, but you want to include your include directories and your library directories. I, by default, have it set up for all my projects, but if you want to just do it locally for this project, this is how you'll do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on this little arrow right here, go to Edit, we're then going to go here, going to click over this, and then this dot box will pop up. From there, what you want to do is you want to probably go to where it was installed. Assuming you didn't change the path, it would be the local disk, program files. If you're running on a 64-bit, it's going to be an x60 or 86, or else it's just going to be in program files. You're going to want to go down to the Microsoft DirectX SDK, hoping you have the June 2010 build. You're going to go to include, and then select that file. And I'm actually going to X that out. Do not do this X, because I'm just doing this because I already have it included. And then hit OK. And same thing for libraries. You're going to want to go, once again, over into local disk, program files, Microsoft DirectX SDK June 2010, lib, and then whatever OS that you're running on. If it's 64-bit or if it's 32-bit, click on the corresponding folder and then select the folder. And once again, hit OK. Not hitting cancel like I did. And then you hit OK. From there, you should be able to compile it and you should have no failures, no warnings, no nothing, hopefully. If you have anything, of course, send me a comment or a message and I'll try and help you out. So now we have what we need to get DirectX running, and everything's now set up. We technically have a DirectX project, but we're not actually using DirectX yet. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to start it off by creating a couple of variables. So what we're going to need to do is create two variables, 2 pointers actually. We're going to need to create an iDirect3D9 object, all right? And of course, make it a pointer. And we can name this whatever we want, of course. We can always name everything whatever we want. But I'm going to follow Hungarian notation, do M underscore for private, do P for pointer, and then we're just going to call this the D3D object. All right, and once again, I personally as a programmer like to compile it after I type stuff. That way it'll actually save your stuff out, and if Visual Studios were to crash, it'll keep your stuff. So I will be compiling every so often. Just check this yellow line right here, and if it turns green, that basically means that I've compiled my project. So after that, we're going to want to create an iDirect3D9 device. Oh, sorry, not a DirectX 3D 9 device, a DirectX 3D device 9 pointer. And we're just going to call this M underscore P device. I don't know why I did that. All right, so with those being there, we're going to need these basically to initialize DirectX and get everything that we need to set up our DirectX project. So now that we have our private data members, what we're going to do is we're going to go into app.cpp. From here, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be initializing our pointers. Like I said, this is going under the assumption that you know what pointers are and how they work. However, what we're going to do is we're going to set both of them to null. Null pointer, 0, all works the same. The reason why we're doing this is because when they're pointing to 0, they're pointing to 0. And that basically means that they're not initialized and we shouldn't be using them. That's just in case if we maybe try to initialize like our DirectX device and something goes wrong, it'll stay 0. And that way, whenever we go to render or we go to release our data, there's actually something there it's pointing to. And we're not just trying, we're not just pointing to garbage. So once again, like I said, we're just setting that stuff to null. From there, what we're going to want to do is we're going to need to go to our init. Because now, we have these 2 pointers here that are just pointing null. It's not going to do us any good. So what we're going to first need to do is we're going to need to work with our object. Now the point of our object is basically going to give us access to different things throughout DirectX 9. But the basic purpose of it is it's going to give us access to our device, which I will tell you what it is in a couple seconds. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to call DirectX 3D, Direct3D create 9. It's basically a function inside DirectX which is going to give you a pointer to that object. So what you're going to want to send in is an unsigned int. It's already a poundify included in DirectX. You want to do d3d underscore SDK underscore version. That's basically just going to set it up for your computer, whatever it is version you have. So there you go. And then we're going to want to check and see if our our object is equal to null. Because if it is, that means that something went wrong. And typically, nothing is going to go wrong. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to probably want to show a message, something went wrong. Like I said, these cases should never honestly happen. But if they do, you're going to want to handle them accordingly. What I'm going to do for the sake of this tutorial is I'm going to pound include something called C assert. It's actually really cool. Just pound include at the top of app.cpp. What it is it's basically something that's going to put a message onto your screen if the current thing that you pass in returns false. You'll see. So inside this if check, what we're going to do is we're going to call assert. And we can call this, like I said, after we pound include C assert. And it just asks for an underscore expression. Now, don't really be scared. Basically, how I usually use it is I put it inside an if statement. If it ever gets in this, it'll just show this. And if you put if not, and then in quotes, put whatever message you want it to show. So something like failed to create our object. Create object. Boom, 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 boom. Now that's it. And make sure you close that up. And then I once again compiled. If you ever see this green line, like I said, I don't know if I actually said this yet. I think I did. Yes, I did. Never mind. Ignore me. So I should run this, and it shouldn't hit that CSR at all. You know, it runs, and it's a white screen. However, we're going to turn this to not, and that basically means that it actually did work. And now, how are we going to handle this? That way, you see what assert does. That way, you don't start freaking out. And see, it says assertion failed, and not failed to create device. It'll tell you. You can actually hit retry. It'll take you to that line, which is pretty darn cool. Now, it'll only do it in debug. It'll actually, I think in release, if you run it, it could cause some problems. It might actually send you a message. Let's switch it over to release. Let's run it, and let's see what happens. Actually, it might just do the same thing. However, if you hit retry, it might not take you to that stopping point. All right, so it actually didn't show the CAssert. But whatever. Oh. Okay, so we're going to switch it back over to debug. So make sure that you put this back to equals if you were following along. If not, we have that. So after that, what we're going to need is our device. All right. But before we do that, we're going to need a couple of parameters that are going to help us create this device along with this object. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to create something called presentation parameters. What this is, presentation. And what these are going to do is it's basically, what do you want the traits of our device to be? That's what this is going to do for us. In a sense, that's what it is. So use for the creation of our device. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a D3D present parameters. And I'm just going to call this present param. All right, just create it locally, no dynamic, no pointers, no nothing. Just, yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually zero out everything. There's a little thing in Windows.h called zero memory. It's pretty great. It sets everything to 0 or null or whatever it is that you want to do. So you want to send in the address of presentation param, and you want to send in the size of presentation param as well. Oh, sorry. Copy, paste, and boom. All right, and basically what this is it's going to send in the pointer to our presentation param, and then how many bytes of data that is. All right. So from there, we're going to need to basically set up our presentation parameters. Now, there's a ton of stuff that is actually inside of presentation parameters. Then, for the sake of this video, I'm not going to go over all of them. I'm going to go over some of them. So, set up the presentation param. All right. So let's just see what data members they have, and you see all these data members inside, and you're just like, oh, there's a lot of stuff. Don't worry, it's not that bad. The MSDN actually does cover you pretty well, but these are the things that are necessary to actually get DirectX running. So the back buffer width is basically what do you want the width, or what is the width of your window. Typically you can send that in the init, and you'd already have that stuff preset up inside main.cpp. But yeah, we already know that my screen is already 800 by 600. Naturally change it to whatever it is that you want it to be. Now, this is not the width of your actual screen. It's the width of your window that you make. So, presentation param, back buffer, back buffer height, and we're going to set that equal to 600. So after that, we're going to want to create a presentation param and do the .h device window. What this is asking for is it's asking for a handle to our window, and naturally we have that right here, which is being passed in. So the underscore hwind. And by the way, with all these very quick things, how I call them, typing it in and it's filling it in for me, it's something inside Visual Studio. If you actually start typing something and then you hit Control Space, it'll fill it in for you. right there. And see how there's actually multiple stuff. If you type in like BA, there's multiple stuff. Control space, it'll actually bring it in here, and you can actually choose what you want and just hit enter. But we're not working with that anymore. But so after that, presentation param windowed equals true because it is going to be a windowed application. After that, presentation param presentation interval. Now what this is if you know what VSync is basically it's going to limit your window to updating 60 frames per second. However, if you turn off the VSync, it can update however fast that it honestly wants to. Usually in a computer like mine, it'll go a couple hundred frames per second. Personally, I like VSync because in some instances it'll prevent tearing. So for the sake of this video, that's what we're going to be putting in there. So you're going to want to set it equal to d3d present underscore interval underscore default. Now, like I said, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can actually set this to. I believe there's different actually intervals that you can set it to. All that stuff is on the MSDN. The MSDN is a great place if you want to know what you could be setting things to. Excuse me. So next we're going to set the presentation parameter swap effect to d3d swap effect underscore discard. And that's once again, it's whenever it's swapping between, when we're rendering, we're going to be presenting the back buffer. And what this is going to be doing is, what are we going to be doing with that? We're just going to be discarding it. We're not going to worry about it. And then also we need to set up our auto stencil buffer format. And we're just going to set it equal to, we're going to set it equal to d3d fmt underscore d16. Once again, all this stuff is explained to you inside the MSDN. And then last thing what we're going to need is enable the stencil buffer to true. Our auto depth stencil buffer to true. Now our presentation parameters are all set up. So from here what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to create our device, which, like I said before, our device is basically giving us, I wouldn't say direct access to our graphics card, but it gives us access to the graphics card. Without the device, we wouldn't be able to actually use our GPU, or as far as DirectX goes. The device gives us access to that graphics card, or to our graphics card. So what we're going to want to do is, we're going to want to take our object. Like I said, what it does is it actually allows us to get access to multiple things in DirectX. What we're going to want to do is do our object's create device function. Now there's a whole bunch of stuff that you want to send in, but don't worry. I mean, it's really not that bad. So for the first parameter, it wants the adapter. Just type in d3d adapter underscore default. Easily fills it in for you. After that, it wants the device type. So you'll want to send in d3d dev type underscore HAL. After that, the focus window. What window is this for? We already set that in the device window, and then there's focus window. So underscore hwind. After that, it wants the behavior flags. So what we're going to be sending is d3d create underscore hardware underscore vertex processing. And then after that, it wants a pointer to our presentation parameters that we just created. So send in the address of presentation param. And then from there, it wants a double pointer to our device. So basically, our pointer up here, our device, is a pointer. And if you send in the address of that, that's going to be a double pointer. Basically, the reasoning behind that is you're going to be sending in that pointer, but it's going to be filling out that pointer data for us. So that way, it's not actually returning, memory that would be relevant to our device, because it actually does return something that we're going to need to check for. But for this, make sure you pass in the address of the device, address of the pointer to the device. All right, so from there, you would think that we want to actually end it. We don't, because if we go checking what the create device returns, it returns an H result. And what the H result is it's basically, did it break? Yes or no. And usually it's a good thing to check for these. Like I said, if something goes wrong, you're going to want to naturally handle it in however you feel is fit. So put an if check around it, and what you want to see is if it's not equal to s_OK. And I think it's just like 1 or something, or 0, or whatever it is returning. And then put some quotes or whatever. I like to put it because that's a lot of stuff to look at, and that way you can see our next C assert. So we're just going to copy this line. That way I'm not sitting here typing C assert over, or assert over and over again. And we failed to create the device. So from here, we basically now have our device. Assuming we get past this point, let's put some comments. We created the device. All right, so from there, now what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to move over to our geometry data.